as basically Agile product development. I did actually run one of these, by the way, as part of a hackathon. And in that hackathon, we had used basically these design sprint concepts to help some of the teams to come up with ideas really quickly, and then to be able to implement basically a low fidelity prototype. So it's not going to be a full working product, but it'll be a low fidelity prototype. So let's go into how this works now in the context of a product team. So like I said, the challenge is really that in many cases you have, especially as you're trying to adopt Agile, a lot of teams are used to waterfall. They're used to basically saying, hey, here's all of my requirements. And they say, go be Agile, right? And it doesn't work because the ideas are supposed to be interactive, we're supposed to be collaborating. And so that's really a big challenge. And it was really a challenge that I dealt with a lot in working with a lot of our teams. So design sprint is an approach basically to increase shared vision and collaboration where everybody comes together in a room. And when I say everybody, that usually Google Ventures recommends like 7 to 10. They're not the only people certainly to do design sprints. I think IDEO and many others have actually come up with similar approaches they use internally. However, the idea is it shouldn't be 50 people, right? It should be a manageable number where you can actually have people interact and collaborate together. Usually a design sprint could happen before your Scrum product development sprint. So if you have sprint 1 through whatever, N, you would start your design sprint potentially in sprint 0, right? So in sprint 0, you're running the design sprint and you're going through, and usually it's because you have a big question to answer. You're thinking about the why or some big question. You're not sure how something's going to work or something will be successful in a certain way. So you'll try the design sprint to see if you can kind of sort that out, and then go into your product development sprints and start creating more of your backlog, et cetera, based on what you find in the design sprint. Okay? So design sprint connects design thinking and Agile, as we said, which actually, it was surprising when I was looking into this, but there's not a lot of people who really connect the two. You have a lot of people in design thinking, you have a lot of people who are involved in Agile and Scrum. You have very little connection. Now, I was talking to someone in the hall the other day, and she was saying, oh, we do this in our product company all the time. And I would guess that a lot of product companies may have this down internally. And if they build really good products, they probably know how to do this. But I guess for me and maybe the rest of us who are kind of maybe you're not in that product company context, the connection doesn't always seem to be there. So this is a really nice way to do that. It's great because many of your users are already familiar with some of the design thinking, and design sprints aren't always applicable. So you shouldn't think that you always need to use a design sprint. In some cases, you don't really need one. You've got a pretty good idea of what's going on. There's no big question that isn't answered for you right now. So maybe you just go into your sprint 1, or you just have a kind of standard sprint 0, which a lot of people recommend against doing, by the way. But nonetheless, you go in. You may not always need to have this design sprint. Okay.